why do you think Jan Martel includes two parts of the Carnivorous Island with meerkats and the Blind Frenchman? I said he includes meerkats in Carnivorous Island. The Blind Man is an experience for Pi that could have happened or could have been a figment of his imagination. It gives the reader a sense of this might have happened, but it might not have. But there are two very important parts of this chapter because it shows, obviously, the reader can tell that there's no Blind Man on Island, but it is possible that there could be a Carnivorous Island. But I feel like he includes it to maybe show how Pi is actually like going crazy, or he's showing it because, well, I guess it's pretty much on the reason. So.
Effect this is having on him.
Backing off that, I agree that like it's just, I think the main point of it is to show like how delusional he is now, and kind of to make the story just more visual and like put more aspects of like fiction in it. Maybe to show maybe to show how obviously fictional the story is, but mainly to show that like Pi is just becoming extremely delusional in his moment. So
I think that. Smitty, you want to get?
Matt, you.
Y'all already know I can go.
Alright, Smitty, I'll let you go after. Alright. So I think he wanted his book to be like to let the reader ultimately decide what was happening, drawing that line between what is real and what is like imaginary. Yeah.
So yeah.
There you go, big fella.
Thank you, Matt. So basically, yeah, I think you pretty much just put this in here to kind of show some elements of disbelief. So because at the end of the day, the whole point of really of the book is for you to accept some surreal aspects of life and to kind of open yourself to some unlikely situations to and kind of some situation, and so it's just basically to kind of help I have my whole it's basically to test you on what you want to believe in and not believe, kind of like what Matt said, and whether you want to believe in kind of a imaginative kind of crazy story, or as he puts it on page 3 or 2. Ooh.
Evidence. Nice.
Is that the last page of the book?
No.
Alright.
Dry yeast, or if you want to, dry yeastless factuality.
Yeah. I think that so as a reader, when I read the book, I kind of felt stranded like Pi was when he was on the boat, while I was on the boat. I felt as a reader that I was on the boat with him, and I felt stranded with him. And I think that not a lot of people may feel that way, but Jan Martel did a very great job of making me feel like I was with Pi. The whole book, I read it as in like I was with him, but like in on his thoughts. And it kind of was interesting because the second that the Carnivorous Island came up, that was my beacon of hope. Like I got, when the island was there, like I thought, all right, we're good. This is getting saved. Like I'm Bear Grylls. Like we're gonna get saved. And I think that Jan Martel did this to kind of give. It's like that nail biting moment when you're like, oh my gosh, I got it, and then it goes away. And I think that was just like a part of the book where he wanted to get the reader back in 100%. And I think he did a great job with that.
Yes, sir. I feel like, sorry, but I feel like he added this just to really add to that aspect of faith and like how far, like, because if it wasn't enough to be on a boat with a tiger for 160 days, like to add these two more things that are, it's almost like so like hard to like to get away from like a carnivorous island like an island Fiji, and then like that and the Frenchman that comes out of nowhere. It's like it really adds in. You can see in the prologue where it says like this book and this story. What are you smiling at?
I am not smiling at anything.
Well, yeah, this story will make you believe in God, and he's talking about how like that's a really tall order, but like he can fill that order. But I feel like it really shows you like how I feel like he added this just to really add that aspect of what faith can get you through and how it can help you.
I still feel like that whole out carnivorous island and the Frenchmen were like just completely his delusions. Like it was totally like,
Result of dehydration or
yeah, he was
whatever.
like out of it. Because especially on page 283, it says, in the morning the island was gone as the mass of algae we had been towing. As soon as the night had fallen, the algae had dissolved the rope with its acid. I just feel like since the island disappeared so fast, like it wasn't like, islands don't go away like that, to be honest. At least that's to my best
Your
knowledge.
Right, yeah.
And it just like makes me feel weird, like feel weird about the book, cause like so much of that, like that whole part is just, doesn't feel real, which
Surreal, yeah,
kind
that's-
of like, it kind of ruins it for me a little bit. It
Yeah.
makes me feel like, I
That's
mean,
the
like, I
point.
feel like the first part of the book is real, but then like once it gets into this weird part, I just don't.
Yeah, I feel like that's the point though.
You think?
Yeah, I mean, that's the entire point of the book, is for you to try to accept things that seem out of the ordinary, that seem like they can't be true. Like that's, whether it be religion, whether it be literature, whether it be anything. I'm like, it's just kind of, I feel like that's the entire point of the book, for you to try to accept things that
I'm
are.
a little too cynical.
Kind of like
Yeah.
what Smitty's saying. I think he's trying to challenge the reader to see if they'll believe the unbelievable. Basically, like kind of when Pi is talking about agnostics and atheists, like atheists are at least making the leap to like not believe in something, or to make that decision that they don't believe in God. When agnostics, they're just like, well, I don't know. It's just kind of like it's up to the reader to make that decision whether they believe in it or whether they don't believe in it, and which story they choose to believe in.
And just going off what Zach said, I mean, it's easy, like, yeah, Jan Martelli did a really good job of helping the reader be there on the boat. And I feel like that he did this part of the Carnivorous Island just to make the reader think of the hopeful and post-family ever, basically, he said. But he gets his hopes up only just to like catch your attention one more time.
Right.
Because you're tired of hearing about seasickness.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like you need to include that just because, like, how much can you like,
What else
like
can you say?
make realistic when you're on a journey for 200 days?
Let's try to combine the last two questions, because we got into much time. Because we're talking about truth now. So,
I think that,
okay, well, let's just read the It seems like Pi wants us to believe in his first version of his survival at sea, the version with the tiger and all the fantastical details. But does this version essentially count as a lie? What does his story reveal about his character?
Was there anything?
Oh yeah, I can.
I heard it.
I think that it kind of shows. Well, I don't think it's a lie because, like, he believes in his delusions, and it also kind of shows like how, like, since faith is a really big part of his life, it kind of shows like how like his extreme delusions show his like imagination and like how he can believe in different things that might seem unrealistic and unreasonable. But like that quote that me and PJ had in our presentation, how he's saying like reason can be limiting. But so yeah, I don't think it was a lie. It counts as a lie because he believed it, even though like other people might think it's crazy.
yeah, I mean, that's pretty, it's really hard to go against or go for that because you kind of described everything there, but that's really good. I would say that it does not count as a lie because, you know, really the only version that we know of is the version that we were following the whole way through up until the story, you know, to the reps of the ship. But I think this story reveals that Pi has faith and has determination and ambition when it comes to his beliefs. I think that he doesn't want to let up on the fact that you know, there is a God. And I think that's very strong, and I think it really strengthens him because it makes him, you know, have a path and have a way. So yeah, I believe in the story with the tigers.
Basically, with it, yeah, kind of piggybacking off Zach, what does this mean about his character? It just kind of shows, kind of confirms everything we've already known about Pi, like how he takes aspects of stuff that he finds interesting, and he finds a way to combine them all. So I guess what I'm trying to say, like towards the end of the book, you know, when he asks the Japanese company officials to what's your favorite part of the story, and then maybe they don't say the first part, it's just a better story, and he says yes, and so it goes with God, and I feel like that's probably one of the most important quotes in the entire book, just because it kind of combines everything.
Yeah, yes,
Everybody's laughing at me now.
No,
I
it's
think
not
even he
that.
says that, like, and so it goes with God. I was
It
just
means
joking.
like,
And wait, Carter was gonna answer that. Like, what do you think that means? Like,
that like, so it goes with God, like, basically to me it means like you can either believe it or you don't have to believe it. Like, his detachment from reality, like, gives him this like sense of imagination and like adventure and stuff like that. But why do y'all think that like the Japanese people in the end, like in his report, they say Pi's original story about the animals rather than the one that was like more realistic, I guess, like rational, like what they wanted, like more factual about the humans?
I think Lexi should answer one because she's spoken like once.
yeah.
So we might.
what do you think about that, Lexi?
Wait, what was the question?
Back.
Like, why do you think the Japanese reporters, like, in the end, decided to use the animal story rather than the human story?
I think the first one is like harder for most people to believe, but like when you do believe it, it's like more like interesting. I feel like it's harder to survive on a boat with like a tiger that can eat you than like people. I don't know. I also like believe the first story. I feel like it's harder for me to believe the second one. That like there was a quote on part 3. It was like Mother and I held his. It was about the cook. Mother and I held his arms while the cook sat on his good leg. The sailor writhed and screamed. His chest rose and fell. The cook worked the knife quickly. Like that's very hard for me to believe that like people would just like kill each other so quickly and like just turn on each
But
other.
it's like cannibalism, like, on
Yeah.
the boat, like, they have to do that to survive, like, Thai, like, kills the fish and stuff, like, the animals would kill each other, so why do you think the humans wouldn't?
I don't know. I feel like it's like a more typical thought that like animals would kill each other because we see it a lot more, and like it's known that like sometimes when you put them together they just like attack each other, and like humans usually don't.
I think we expect that anyway,
Yeah,
but we
You
want
think
it to be
it's
true that humans.
More of a last
Yeah.
resort, because like since Pi was on a boat with a tiger, it's not like he can eat the tiger. That's a pretty cool thing to accomplish. But like the fact that like the human part was, why didn't you try to catch some fish first?
Yeah.
Also,
That's better than eating a human.
when at first like I was leaning towards like believing the whole story, but like now it just kind of seems like he was kind of just super delusional like the whole time. And on page 283 he says at one point, the lower you are, the higher your mind will soar. And so like that's kind of just in like I see that as like he was on the boat for such a long time, like he kept getting like lower and lower, I don't know, and it just seems like that just made him like more and more delusional, and like half of the things he said could have been like just part of his delusion, and so.
That's a good quote.
I feel like, too, you go ahead, Amy, and I'll say what I was gonna say.
When people are like having which version is true, they exclude the third possibility, which is that both versions are fake.
Interesting.
We don't have any evidence to prove those two stories because it's only based on Pi's sayings. I think that Pi wants us to believe in his first version of survival C because it reveals that Pi believes in God and
the existence of hope, no matter how ugly and dark the reality is. In other words, Pi would rather to believe that his illusion is true and the world is beautiful, thus he can live with hope.
It's easier to live with, absolutely. It's interesting. Put your hand up or are you just
Yes.
stroking?
No, it was
Okay,
good. So personally, like I feel like it's almost like Pi doesn't know that he's really imagining it. Is the fact that when there's someone like that hasn't been through it before, goes through a traumatic experience, such as like this is just assuming that the second story was real,
Sure.
not the first one. If someone like goes through an experience like as traumatic as that is, like seeing your mother killed, seeing someone else get killed, and like that's
Having to kill someone yourself.
and having to kill someone
Yeah.
yourself, like they use familiar objects and things that they're like
Yeah.
able to easily identify and understand, like to kind of mask that and protect them from like that traumatic memory. And especially if you're put on a boat like alone for like 200 days after it, directly after it happens, I feel like it's like Pi's like body like naturally trying to like keep that memory out and make something recognizable
Yeah.
and like less like traumatic from
Like
it.
a coping mechanism,
Yes,
basically,
like
for
coping, he
the
doesn't even
trauma.
know that it's happening naturally. It's just like
I think that's a good point. I think this is, I'm always interested to see what people say about this kind of last question in terms of like, what do you choose to believe in?
Yeah.
Because and maybe going back to what Claire was saying, maybe I'm just more cynical too, but like, yeah, I mean, I believe that the truth is the human story. I mean, and again, you don't have to believe that, but like, I think I think that's probably what really did happen. But I don't think that negates the power of the other story. And going back to some of what Will and Matthew were talking about, this notion of like, does it really matter what the truth is? You know what I mean? Like, I think that is part of Pi's point. Like truth is like, Grace, I think you mentioned like, if Pi believes it, then it's not a lie, right? Like, then, you know, like if that's something that helps him to cope or is what he wants to believe in, and it is a better story. It's a more positive story, right? Like than humans, than the ugliness of you know, murder and darkness of what the cook does and all of that kind of stuff. So I think that idea of the existence of hope, like Amy was saying, I think is an interesting one because I think the story, you know, we want to believe in hope, but we want to believe in good things, and that does make something a better story for sure.
And to like go back on number 5 to answer that, I'm sorry, get an answer on that. Like I agree with Grace and you when it's coming. If you're ignorant of the truth, you can't necessarily be considered lying because if you don't. I feel like he's not aware of the truth because of that, just the experience of being on the boat on his own for 200 days. So I feel like he's not lying because he personally doesn't even know like what exactly happened. He's ignorant of the truth. He isn't.
Do other people think that's true? Do we think that
I don't
Pi
think the
doesn't
story
know?
happened at all. I think it was all a dream.
Which one? The tiger story?
The whole story.
The whole of it? Like he's still back in India?
I think he was still
How
on
did
the
he end
boat.
up in Canada?
I think he's still on the boat.
Oh, okay.
I literally read this on a forum. It was like
Yeah.
because of before I came into class, it
Yeah.
was like, oh, there's gonna be text.
Sure.
So I was like, what are the conspiracy?
Sure.
So there's actually a conspiracy that while he's sleeping, because you know when he wakes up to go look outside, that's the start of his dream.
He wakes up to go look outside where? On the boat?
Yes.
Oh,
And then because you know when he figures
What
out.
happened to his parents then?
It ends with him talking to somebody. And that he never really mentioned his parents have never really been there, it's only a day. It's so weird, but I don't know, I kind of believe that's cool.
Interesting. Okay. Sorry, were you gonna say something? Okay. So some interesting things I think came out of this discussion and stuff that I think we'll circle back around to after we get done with college essay for the next couple weeks and kind of come back after Outward Bound. We're gonna have some other sources that we're gonna take a look at, and so I think some of these things will come back up. Just a few of the things that I jotted down while you guys were talking yesterday and today, like I remember like William was asked the question yesterday about like it was when we were talking about influencing others and like whether like judgment of others is like if the way someone looks at you, like because of who you associate with, like does that make that judgment true? Like does that make that perception true even though you might not be like the people you're hanging around with? Thought that was kind of interesting. Will Ballard said something yesterday that I thought was interesting about like external influences, that Pi was like basically was externally influenced because he internally allowed himself to be open-minded to be so. So like I think that tension is kind of interesting, like because like how much control do we have over like what externally influences us and how open-minded we are about that stuff. And then PJ mentioned yesterday this idea of like tension between faith, like the tension that Pi has between like morality and the need for physical survival, like throughout this whole thing, and how he feels bad about like killing the fish or killing the cook, right? If we go with that story, but that yet he had to do some of these things that were awful to physically survive, which is interesting. Cool. Good stuff. Let's do this. Let's put Pi away for now, and let's return to our seats where we were